Um, First of all, just thank you all for being here. And Michelle, thank you so much for allowing us this time to tell us all about Soaring Spirits and Camp Widow and be able to answer any questions that folks may have. For those of you I don't know, my name is Bobby Moss. I lost my husband Terry in March 2017, so I'm about 8 years into this journey. And I came to know Michelle 5 years ago when we had a pop-up camp at the LA Gay and Lesbian Center. And it was the first camp I attended. I've lost count of how many I have been to over the last 5 years. But I think it's a great opportunity for people to come together, get support, and build community. And so, Michelle, I will let you introduce yourself and we'll take folks through some information.
Well, again, I want to echo Bobby. I'm so excited that you're all here, and I'm always happy to talk about Camp Widow. It has transformed my life and the lives of so many widowed people because our purpose is to help widowed people find both the practical tools and also the community support that we need to rebuild our lives. Because, in my opinion, the hardest question to answer after you've been widowed, I was widowed in the year 2005. So this year's 20 years for me, which is crazy. But the hardest question to answer is what now? What am I supposed to do now? And my experience has been that answering that in community and having access to a lot of different people with a lot of different answers to that question sort of helps you to shape your own answers. You may not have the exact same answer as someone else, but you'll have your own version. And so other widowed people have certainly been the most important part of my personal healing, access to them and my connection with them. And 20 years later, it still matters to me that we have connection with widowed people. And still, widowed people are my favorite people. So I'm excited to be here tonight and eager to share the Camp Widow program with those of you who are not familiar. And so happy to see some of your faces for those of you who have been.
So,
I'm going to start here, and then pass it to Bobby. So I am a LGBT plus widowed ally. My husband died, as I said, in 2005 in a cycling accident. And one of the most eye-opening parts of planning Camp Widow. So Camp Widow, I like to tell people Camp Widow was my crazy idea. Like Bobby, I have lost count of how many I've attended, something in the area of 50 something. And I'm going to tell you that out of those 50 something that I have experienced personally, the event that we planned for the queer community in 2020 was one of the most meaningful I've ever been to. And the reason for that, in my opinion, is that so many LGBT plus people have not been recognized as widowed or have struggled to find spaces where they feel that their experience as a widowed person is equally valid, is deserves an equally an amount of support, that programming designed specifically to address the ways in which the underrepresentation of gay widowed folks within the broader widowed community has impacted this community, particularly their ability to find relevant and meaningful support. And we've worked really hard to make space for that and to make sure that it is the widowed community that we serve, the LGBTQ plus specific widowed community that we serve, that's helping to create this space, that we're not creating spaces assuming that we know. As allies, we can show up, we can create space, we can make sure that we're holding safe space, we can apply the tenets of the program that we've created to creating a specific space for queer widowed folks. But it is our opinion and our continued effort is in making sure that we have community buy-in for everything that we're presenting today. So to that end, I'd love for Bobby to just share a little bit about his own first experience with Camp Widow in 2020, the only event we held in 2020.
absolutely. And I just want to, before I jump into that, I just want to kind of give validity to your commitment and to Soaring Spirits' commitment to our community in standing up a steering committee comprised of LGBTQ people to shape the camp in LA and to make sure that the tracks and the workshops are meaningful to our experience and honor those experiences. And I think that just goes a long way to show that this is really intended to be, really by us for us. And the speakers are all members of our community. We speak from an experience that has been influenced, or in many ways, by our experience. Like yourself, when I became widowed, I heard from Camp Widow, not when I attended, but one of the admins of a Facebook group I had joined. Posted notes from the keynote speaker in Tampa that year, and that which was happening just after I lost Terry, like literally the next week.
Oh,
And it said that to move forward in life, you need to bring new people into your life. That your friends, and they can love you, they can support you, but they can't help you move forward. And I did not need to hear that at day 6, but it's something I revisited, and I started reaching out to other LGBTQ widows, if I was going to be in their city, if I was traveling, to say, hey, do you want to meet for a cup of coffee? And, 3 hours at Starbucks with 5 widows, and, laughing and crying. And it was the most healing thing I did. And it became a quest, which is what led me to LA when I learned about the camp and that you were having one specific for our community. I went, Andy Lee, another member of our Facebook group, went with me, and I met so many amazing people there that are now, great friends of mine. But it felt so good to walk into a space where I immediately felt welcome and like I belonged. And then in each workshop, in each session, to have sort of my experience validated, reflected to me, it was just really incredible. And I think Hal says it great here that, gay grief is unique. That loss is loss, and we all grieve, and everyone that loses their person absolutely grieves. I think that our experience in the world adds a layer to that, and I think it's wonderful to explore those layers. And I think that you'll see in the workshops, that's what we've tried to do, is really explore those in a way that can help people feel seen and validated.
yeah. Yeah, I 100% agree. And who we are as an organization, one of our core values is validation. It's being able within a variety of different spaces to include every single person who has experienced the death of their person. So that is how we define widowhood. Soaring Spirits defines widowhood as anyone who experienced the death of someone they intended to spend their life with. And I always hear like to call out that life is complicated, love is complicated, relationships are complicated. And so, of course, widowhood would be complicated also. And I've had so many people over the years. Soaring Spirits is 17 years old. We are a secular organization that provides meaningful, practical programs for widowed people to help them rebuild their lives using that broad definition of widowhood that I already expressed, but also including people who have maybe they were separated when their person died, people who were divorced when their person died. We've had so many people who have had the experience of having someone perhaps struggle with addiction and they divorced, but they always imagined that they would get back together. And then unfortunately, their person dies. And in another program, they're not considered widowed. But here, if that was the person you thought you were going to spend your life with, we consider you to be widowed. And so, though we do offer this very broad definition, we do also confirm that people are indeed widowed because we want to make sure that we are creating safe space. And for our LGBTQ plus widowed camp specifically, we're also asking people just to share a little bit about how they connect with the LGBTQ plus community because we want to make sure that everybody who is coming to this space is coming with that specific need because that is the purpose of this particular event. For those of you who may know people who are not a part of the gay community but are widowed themselves, we have 4 other events throughout the year that everyone is welcome to, of course, including our gay community. But what we work really hard to do as an organization, when we lean into our value of validation and our value of inclusion, we look to marginalized or underrepresented populations within the broader widowed community to say, what do we need to do to serve in this space? And the question is always designed to be asked of people within that community, because really all of Soaring Spirits programs are built by widowed people for widowed people. And when you take that to the next layer, then our LGBT plus widowed events and programs must also be built by widowed people from that community for the widowed people in that community. And so our steering committee and our dedication to expanding our footprint in this space is really driven by the need to create pipelines of leadership within our gay widowed community so that there is always a relevant voice and a valid voice when we are working on our programs.
Incredibly well said. Um, Michelle, do you want me to walk through a few slides about Camp
Yeah, that
Widow
would be
LA?
great.
Or
I would love
okay,
that.
sure. So this is the LA LGBT Center, and it'll be where the camp in August is going to be. And as Michelle was saying, this is creating a population-specific camp for LGBTQ widowed people. I think they're also looking at doing similar things for other populations. Um, and so more to come there. Registration is open exclusively to our community, and again, to address specific needs for us. And as Michelle just said so wonderfully, they're committed to creating an inclusive and welcoming environment. And the center happens to be ADA accessible as well. And so it's truly open to all. And in creating that safe haven, and here's Andy and I at the 2020 pop-up camp. Um, you know, the they recognize that access to our community shortens the distance between hope and despair, and I really love the way that they expressed that. Michelle's already talked about having a very broad definition of widowed, and I think that that is fantastic. And I also would add to that, something Michelle you said at one of the opening sessions at one of the mini camps, was that this isn't something you graduate from. I think, there's other programs that if you got remarried, then you're no longer widowed. You no longer qualify in that. And as someone who recently got remarried, I can tell you I very much still feel widowed. And that is something that will be part of me and my identity for the rest of my life. Um, they're working to remove barriers. Some of that is location. This is happening at an LGBT center. We're looking next year, possibly New York, at the New York LGBT Center, and another location the year after that. So we're looking to find spaces that are safe, where people feel very welcome and very um, accepted in coming to for support. Um, Also, there's a recognition that how we mourn changes across cultures, that our community, our culture does impact how we grieve and some of the circumstances of that. And I think that the queer community is quite complex. There's many letters in our name, and each of those represent a different experience. And so more than most, I think the LGBTQ plus, AI plus community recognizes that who we are matters, our identity matters, and the world in which we surround ourselves with shapes how we grieve, how we mourn, and also the type of support we get, or in some cases don't receive. And then I think you'll do an amazing job of continuing to find ways to expand your footprint, expand your presence, and support for all widowed people, including those in our community. The workshops, so what you'll find on the website, and we'll share the website links in a minute. You'll find that the workshops are broken out into tracks based on your time and loss. So there's content specific to those who are very early in their grief in the first year, then people that are recent, sort of the second and third years, middle widowed 3 to 5, or seasoned 5 and beyond, because the experience evolves in over time. The support you need, the state of your emotions, all varies. I will also say that everyone gets to choose their own adventure here, because I know people who are 3 years out who still feel newly widowed. they're still dealing with very strong, very raw emotions. And I know people who are 1 year out who are thinking about dating again and are looking at, love after loss. So these are meant to be sort of a track of content focus on different parts of the experience, but you're not aligned based on, you don't have to qualify for each of these. You get to go, where your heart takes you and what resonates with you.
I'll just jump in really quick, Bobby, if you
Yeah,
won't mind.
please.
Add one more. Um, Part of the reason that we offer tracks at all is that we have done a lot of research around the widowed experience. And so these are based on our research and based on our long years of experience with widowed people and what types of things come up during each of these time frames. And so coming back to what Bobby said about not needing to graduate. So, when you are a repartnered widowed person, which I also am, many people will make the assumption that you don't need anything from your widowed community anymore. And yet, the nuances of being in a new marriage, where else would you be able to talk about that except for with other widowed people who may also be repartnered? So, when you look at these tracks, for example, in our seasoned widowed tracks, you may find that there are some workshops around, managing blended families and, moving through what might be next for you related to careers or life experience. There's a lot of things that can shift as you get further along your widowed road. And so, what we try to do is use this schedule to make sure that when we're planning those workshops, so we work with our steering committee to suggest topics and to bring in speakers that they feel will be valuable. And then we check it against this to say, okay, do we have something for newly widowed? Do we have something for recently widowed? So that when you come, no matter how long it's been since you've been widowed, there will be something that likely will address a struggle you're having or something you want more information about or some tools that would be helpful for you in what's coming potentially next. And so, of course, it's not a perfect model. And as Bobby said, the vibe at Camp Widow really is this is about you. We want you to come and create an experience for yourself that matters to you. So if you were to look, say you're widowed 6 months, and you look at those workshops that are suggested for our newly widowed folks, we always use the word suggested because here's the other thing in grief, when there's too many choices, sometimes your brain is scrambled and just can't focus. And so we're also trying to help you in that regard, right? So we'll say, okay, here are some of the suggestions if you've been widowed this long. But if you were to look at all of our suggestions and think, no, I don't want any of those, I want all of them for fill in the blank, something else, you're welcome to do that. So these are really designed to make sure that we know we're offering something within each of those tracks that is likely going to resonate. And also, we totally understand that each person has their own unique path, and we want this to be about you. It isn't about us. It is about us holding a space for you to create something that's valuable as you work out whatever your next steps are, where you find yourself among these different tracks, these sort of time frames about widowhood in particular.
And I think the best sessions are those where it's really the people in the room talking to each other, that is that dialogue that happens in the rooms where people share their experiences and how the topics relate to what they're going through. And oftentimes the biggest aha moments happen in those discussions. So.
Absolutely.
Um, like you just said, this is really about building connections, allowing people to come together. This was from the 2020 camp and sort of a meaningful experience that we did, a group experience, honoring our people. Um, you've already said this, these are research informed that, these are not just, um, we're not just using AI to create an agenda. This is based on real experience and real people and feedback. And again, just connecting with others is such an important part of the experience of Camp Widow. And there'll be plenty of time to do that in the rooms, in the sessions, and also between the sessions on breaks and at lunch and even over dinner. So we're closing out. We've got two more slides. I promise this isn't going to be all slides. So the event is happening August 9th at the LA LGBT Center. Registration is $200 registration fee, which I will say supplements the cost. It doesn't fully cover the cost. We have sponsors and others that are helping to offset that. If cost is a concern, there's camperships available. So I absolutely recommend, if needed, to sign, to request the financial assistance, and we'll do what we can to try to accommodate as many folks as we can. And some other resources. If you have any questions, you can always email contact@soaringspirits.org. I do want to mention this amazing documentary that was mentioned at the start of the call. And in fact, Michelle, I'll let you talk about this because it's amazing, and you've had quite the week as this has been
I have had
released.
quite the week, you're right. So we are recording this during the first week that this our 5 years in the making documentary has been live on PBS through the Independent Lens program. We got funding for this film in 2020. So we were supposed to start filming in March of 2020 and eventually ended up in July of 2022 filming, and it has taken all of this time for it to be completed and make its way through film festivals. But what I love about this is it captures so beautifully what happens when people are in community. There are no talking heads in this video. There are no interviews. There is just the opportunity to sort of walk into the room at Camp Widow and feel what it might be like to be there. This documentary was created on our 3-day program. We are offering now 1-day programs because we wanted to lower barriers to access. So it gives us the opportunity to bring the program to people. For example, bring it to Los Angeles and have it on the campus of the LGBTQ plus center so that you know that this is a space made specifically for you. But all of the elements that you'll see have kind of been combined into our 1-day program. I can tell you though that the vibe is exactly that. It is, I see you, I hear you, I've been there. And though two people may do the exact same task or have the exact same challenge and face it two completely different ways, just being able to be in the same space and say, "Oh, I see you," is truly one of the most miraculous and magical things that I have seen happen. And it happens at every single Camp Widow, all 50 something that I've been to. The same thing happens every single time. And that is when you are in a space that's created for widowed people by widowed people, there is a sense of safety and a bubble of understanding that just helps you feel like you can somehow make it through this and provides you with examples of people who have and provides you with a community of support to walk with you as you do. So I really would love, and if you want to be a support to the organization, sharing the documentary widely and broadly is really helpful for us. We're trying to get as many views as possible so that we can ensure that people who need us can find us. And also, we're always looking for sponsors and supporters who see what we're doing and are willing to invest in our programs. So to Bobby's comment about camperships, if you're in a position where you could provide a campership, you would have that opportunity at your registration. And so if you're thinking to yourself, I could help another widowed person come along, we pass those on directly. So every person who funds a campership has the opportunity to make sure that somebody can benefit from their generosity and be able to attend. So always grateful. I can say I'm grateful, but my gratitude feels very small compared to the gratitude of the people who have been able to attend by campership and who walk away thinking someone gave me the gift of my life. And I don't even know how to thank them. I've been told that many, many times by our campership recipients. So if you are so moved, I can assure you they will be very grateful.
Thanks, Michelle. And just one last thing I'll share is that I've been to the 1-day camp and I've been to the weekend long camp. And I will say that I felt like I got out, I had full experience in the 1 day in LA. It's hard to think back and believe that was just 1 day, because there were so many different conversations. I met so many different people. I heard so many different stories, all within that, 8 or 9 hours of the camp. And so, I do think that that lowering the cost, the barrier to entry, hotels and flights, it the the weekend long format is a much bigger commitment than the one day. I will also say that there's quite a few of us that are planning to be there that are making this a weekend experience. So we're talking about maybe going to Disneyland on Friday and having brunch on Sunday. So there will be opportunities to have additional social time, even if not necessarily sponsored by Soaring Spirits, but certainly reach out if you're interested in any of those things. I'm going to
Excellent.
go ahead and stop the recording and we'll open it up to Q&A.